Hi, good morning everyone. Thanks for joining Hindi University. Last week we didn't have our class, so I'm really excited to to join again all you guys on the Hindi class. I decided for this particular class to kind of go back to basics. In the last class, we identified one particular topic which was which seemed like a required some kind of a revision or more in-depth discussion, and it was around oblique case. Some of you are already familiar with it. Some of you thought like, okay, why don't we just dig deeper, learn more about why there's a need of an oblique case, right? I thought, why don't I just like go back to the basics and like walk you through all the oblique case scenarios, like how oblique case works in Hindi, and why do we even have it in the first place, right? So you'll be surprised that you are not really unfamiliar with the concept. Like if I were to give you some examples in English, probably that will make a lot of sense. So let's look at two scenarios. And as always, you can always ask your questions using the comment box that we have, or using the YouTube video where you're watching live. And you can also share your comments as well, right? So let's look at the first examples. That way, you know what I'm talking about. So let's look at this sentence. They will help her. Straightforward, right? Now let's look at the same examples in a different way. What if I change they with them will help she? What do you think is wrong? I mean, we know it's wrong because it doesn't sound good, but um, why? Why we prefer to use the first when we speak in English, right? I mean, we choose to use the first example, right? We will use they, and we'll use in the end we'll use her. But when we change the cases here, the sentence becomes grammatically incorrect, right? In this case, you can see that this is a subject, and you can see that this is an object. So if subject and object were used in the right cases, if you have the right case for subject and object, the sentence makes sense. It's grammatically correct. But when you start using both of them in a different case, the sentence becomes inaccurate, right? And that's exactly the premise of oblique case in Hindi as well. Um, when you're using the subject in nominative case, it's the normal case that you used. And object, it's your basically oblique case, right? That's when basically, as I mentioned, you use the subject in a nominative case. Accordingly, object comes in the oblique case, right? And that's when it kind of makes sense grammatically. And now we'll know, but why? Why are we using? How do I know that I have to use this object in an oblique case? In English, it is making sense right now, right? But in Hindi, we will look at why and when we use oblique case. So feel free to ask any more questions here. Okay, that's right. So one of the comment is like, because it is dative when an action is executed over an object. Okay, so object is receiving the action directly. That's right, right? But the bottom line is, in any sentence, you're making your subject and your object, they are required to have proper case, right? If they don't have proper case, that means it's inaccurate. So what we'll do is, we learn both, the nominative case as well as the oblique case. And because Hindi is a very highly inflected language, pretty much all the nouns, pronouns, and adjectives, all of them are inflected based on the gender, right? And the number as well. So, what we'll do is, like, we'll go with the very basics. We'll first learn noun, and we learn examples of noun in all the scenarios: masculine singular, masculine plural, similarly feminine singular, feminine plural. Okay. So let's start with first noun, so that way you'll know what I'm talking about. So first I'll give you the oblique case in noun, and then we'll learn about where to use it, right? Um, if you remember, when we talk about masculine singular, pretty much in most of the examples I use the noun called ladka. Straightforward, right? Ladka is like a boy. Now this is like a normal case or nominative case. But in the oblique case, ladka becomes ladke. Now know that it's still a boy. It's not boys. It's simply an oblique case here. Okay, and same thing, same thing. If you're talking about masculine plural, you have ladke, which is boys. Now, what is the oblique case for ladke? I'm going to give you few like 30 seconds to see if you can think of the oblique case for ladke. Yeah, very good. So you already thought about it. The oblique case for ladke is ladko. So it's oblique case for boys. Just 1 minute. Now, where do we use it? Again, we'll come back to the usage of it, right? Can you think of more nouns where think about it? Okay, so I'll give you one more example, and then we'll jump to the usage of it. So I'm just going to give you one thing. Another noun, kapde, kapda, for example. Kapda is a cloth. So I want you to write the oblique case of kapda first. And you can follow the same pattern that we just used. Very good, right? So the oblique case of kapda is kapde. Now the plural of kapda apparently is also kapde, which is like many clothes. But now the oblique case of kapde is very good, right? Kapdo. So these two examples are at least clear, right? In this one we had the masculine singular. In this one we had masculine plural, right? Now let's look at when do we use it. Okay, so example of this scenario. Example of when to use oblique case. If you remember, like, in the sentence, it was simply a boy. Ladka is a boy. But we also learned, postpositions in Hindi. Right? In English, if you were to say, for, or this gift is for the boy, or for this particular boy, right? In English, you are using a preposition. In the parallel, in Hindi, you have a postposition. In English, the boy remains, still remains the boy. even though you're using for or a preposition. But in Hindi, it changes, right? So whenever you're using postposition, because it's coming after the noun, it's called postposition in this case. Whenever you're using postposition, so for the boy, you know the postposition or a relevant keyword for in Hindi. Very good, right? It's के लिए, right? के लिए, आपके लिए, for you, मेरे लिए, for me, हमारे लिए, for us, right? Now, if you were to write the same sentence for the boy in Hindi, how do you write it? I'm going to give you 30 seconds so you can always write on your notepad, in case if you don't have, if you're watching it from your iPad. Very good, right? So you can see that, whenever you have this thing for the boy, what you do is you use the oblique case. So लड़का becomes लड़के के लिए. So it means for the boy. Even though it might appear that, oh, is this like a plural of the boy? No, it is, you're using ladke because there is a postposition after that. It's still for one boy. However, if your sentence is, you know, for the boys, right? Then your sentence becomes, Hindi sentence becomes लड़कों के लिए. Okay, so I hope this is making sense, right? I mean, the reason we use oblique case because there's a post position after the noun here, and that's why your noun gets inflected. Okay, so this was a simple example, for masculine singular and masculine plural. Let's look at the same scenario for the feminine singular and feminine plural. Okay, so let's look at feminine singular here, and you have feminine plural here, right? In feminine singular, most commonly we use this noun called ladki. Ladki is a girl, and plural of ladki, which is girls. Okay, now think about what will be the oblique case of ladki and what will be the oblique case of ladkiya. So I'm going to give you some time so that way you can jog your memory. First, write it for this one. Okay, so in this case, interestingly, it doesn't change. So the oblique case of ladki is still ladki, or rather, more generically, for the most cases, an oblique case of feminine singular is still feminine singular. It remains the same basically. It's still ladki. If I were to go back to our example, like I were to say that okay, this phone is for a girl, right? Ladki ke liye. It doesn't change. In the case of like boy, it was ladke ke liye, right? It changed. But in the case of girl, it remains the same. Ladki ke liye, right? Now, ladkiyan. Think about what will the oblique case of girls. I can say for the girls, and in English it doesn't change. Hindi will be different. Think about it. Take a guess. You can make an educated guess. That's fine. For boy, it was simple, right? Plural is लड़के, but if I were to say these phones are for the boys, ये फोन लड़कों के लिए है. Okay, so in the case of feminine plural, it will be लड़कियों, लड़कियों. So try practicing this लड़कियों के लिए, लड़कियों से, all the postpositions that you are familiar with, ka, ke, ki, ne, pe, say, all these postpositions. Try practicing it with this thing. It'll kind of like give you more strength, right? So you can say लड़कियों से, लड़कियों पे, लड़कियों के लिए, लड़कियों का, right? लड़कियों की. Okay. So or लड़कियों से, anything is fine, right? Any postposition basically. So I hope this is clear. Now let me give you as a quiz, let me give you another almari. So your task is to write the oblique cases of almari, both for singular case and the plural case. Try it. I mean, like a closet, right? Almari, right? So in this case, try it. Okay, good. Almari is like a closet, or it's also known as almirah, right? So almari, the oblique case in singular remains the same, as you know, because for ladki also it remains the same. Almari. Plural for almari is almariyan, like many closets. Almariyan. So if you follow the same pattern that you followed for ladki and ladkiyan, for ladkiyan the oblique case was ladkiyon, right? So you can say almariyon, closets, right? Um, let's look at more examples here so that it will be clear to you what I'm talking about and why we are. So let's use, for the sake of our example, let's use in, a postposition called in. In is a postposition. Do you know the Hindi keyword of in? Let's let them give a shot. Very good, right? May, or that's how you write it in Devanagari. May. So let's make it interesting, right? I mean, why not we use two nouns together to see how it changes. So I think you guys have probably written it, so I'm going to erase it. I'll keep it simple, you know, clothes. What I'll say here is there is a cloth in the closet or in. So I'm just going to keep it simple. In this particular case, this is singular, this is singular. Both of them are singular. So I'm going to ask you to write down the sentence in Hindi. Look, read this together, right? In the closet. First, if I were you, I would write the sentence for this one, and then I'll join the remainder of them. Very good, right? In the closet is almari. almari mein. As simple as that, right? It didn't change, even though there is a postposition after that. Because it's feminine singular, it doesn't change. And kapda, it's, you know, kapda, there is no postposition in Hindi. I mean, this one is a preposition, but like, there's nothing coming after kapda. There's nothing inside the kapda or something like that, right? So if you were to combine it together, you will say almari, kapda hai. अलमारी में कपड़ा है. You can see there is nothing coming after कपड़ा. Hence its कपड़ा remains कपड़ा. Simple as that, right? अलमारी में कपड़ा है. There is a cloth in the almirah. Now let's change it. Why don't I say there are clothes in the closet? There are clothes in the closet. Very good, right? You can see this remains the same, and only this thing changes, right? You're using the plural of your masculine singular. So it'll be almari mein, and you use plural of that. Kapda is like clothes is kapde hain. Almari mein kapde hain. So this is just one closet, and this is like many clothes. And third thing is like this is. It might appear that it's a nominative case, but it is an oblique case. It's an oblique case because you have postposition after almari. Okay, let's make it even more interesting. So let's make it there are clothes in the closets. So I hope this will give you enough. you know so let's try this one. Good, right? So you can see now you in the singular case closet is almariya, but because you're using in English preposition, in Hindi it will be postposition and it will be alma. Almariya becomes almariyo. Almariyo में, and then you have plural here. अलमारियों में कपड़े हैं. अलमारियों में कपड़े हैं. So this is like again oblique case. Many closets, and this is plural, many clothes. Okay, so I hope this is clear. Now at least in the context of noun, you've learned how the oblique case works. There are some exceptions, but for the most part, we'll be using these scenarios. So let's not worry about the exceptions right now, because most of our work will be done with this principle. Hence, I want you to just remember the concept, and then so this is how the oblique case works in the case of noun. But as I said, in Hindi, it's a highly inflected language. So even in the case of pronoun, or even adjectives, we use oblique cases, right? So let's look at how we use, oblique case in the case of, pronoun here. Give me 1 minute. It seems like the screen got. Okay. Okay. So in the case of pronoun, what I'll do is like I'll write down our basic pronouns. So if you remember, our more regular pronouns were like मैं, which is I, आप, you, हम, which is we, uh, वे, which is they. So let me like divide them into. I'm not gonna further complicate it, but let me just do first set here, and then I'll go through the other sets, right? Um, Now, simply, if you're just using them independently, it makes sense. But how, these pronoun also changes if you're using any post position after that. के लिए, like for, right? Um, in English also you'll say for me. You're no longer saying for I, right? Similarly, even in English, like probably for you remains the same, right? Uh, hum remains like for us, for us. You no longer use saying for we, right? For them, right? So it goes back to the very first example which we started with. This is your nominative case. This is your oblique case, right? In English, you have preposition, right? Uh, I hope this makes sense. Now let's see how this changes principally you know for pronouns in Hindi, right? So if I were to use any post position, and post positions we have learned it. If needed, we can always revisit them. Uh, and post position is ka, ke, ki, me, se, pe. Lot of them, right? We learned post position, compound post position. There's no limit of it, right? Now, for the sake of this particular scenario, we'll just use ke liye, right? And if I want to say for me, it will be so ke liye. Let's try it. मेरे लिए, right? So as usual, it will be मेरा, मेरी, and मेरे, right? Primarily, it will be actually, if I were to say मैं, it will be मेरे लिए. So मेरे और मुझ. Think of it as like मेरे और मुझ के लिए, right? For हम, it's try it. Okay, so even though you say हमारे लिए, let me just clarify this thing one more time. Even though I say मेरे लिए, pretty much you have the K coming here, right? But the oblique case is muj, muj, okay? Um, so, for example, even though you don't say मुझ के लिए, it changes to मेरे लिए. But let's say if you were to have मैं in me, there's a good person. If you were to say in me is मुझ में, to me is मुझको और मेरे को, right? uh, from me is मुझसे. Again, these are all post position, right? So, and again, we do say मेरे लिए. There's no denying of that. मेरे लिए. So these are used interchangeably. मेरे लिए, मेरे को, मेरे से, right? From me. So the bottom line is like it's basically मुझ as well as मेरे. And in the case of आप, it remains the same. It's आप. And in the case of हम, it still remains हम. Now let's see how it changes in the case of, you I think I'll do it this one later on. So let's stick with these three, and I'll do in the way in the next set. So I hope this is clear, right? हमारे लिए मैं, आप, and हम. Now let's look at the informal in the same set. Like informal is tu, which is still you, and tum, which is still you. Right? Tu becomes तुझ or तेरे. So you can say तेरे लिए or तुझको, if or तेरे को. So both of them are correct. तुम remains तुम in the oblique case. Like तुमको देखा or तुमसे, right? I mean, it remains the same. Okay, so I hope you were. I'll do now the second set of pronouns here. Now in the second set, I'll have यह, वह, it's this, that, and then ये, these, and then वे, those. Now I'm going to ask you to tell me what will be the oblique case of each of these. यह becomes. Let's start with the very first one. Very good, right? Is. यह becomes is, and that's how you write it. Is. Right? For example, if I were to say um, okay, if I were to say this is a phone, यह phone है. Okay, then I say in this phone. Okay, I'll say इस phone में. Hence, यह becomes is. इस phone में. Okay. What about this? वह becomes. Very good, right? उस. Even though I'm writing at US, it's us. Okay. Okay. So again, an example would be that is a house. वह घर है. In that house, okay, in that house there are 4 rooms. उस घर में 4 कमरे हैं. Okay. Now let's look at ये. ये becomes, in the oblique case, ये becomes. Very good. In. So similarly, if I were to, like, if I had, let's say I had 2 phones, and if I show you like, okay, these are phones, okay, ये phone है, okay, and then if I were to say in these phones, in phono में, right? I mean, or in phones में, right? So hence ये becomes in. Now last one, way. Let's look at way, how it changes for way. Good, right? So for way it's un, right? Same example, like those are houses. Way makan hai. In those houses, there is a backyard in all those houses, right? So you'll say un sabhi garon mein, right? Un sabhi, and you notice I said garo mein because there are houses, right? So plural of gar is gar, but because garo mein there is a postposition after gar becomes garo. Un sabhi garo mein there is a garden, bagicha hai. So I hope this is like you're able to follow. First we learned about how the oblique case works in noun. Then we learned how the oblique case works in pronoun. So in the last set, we learned how the oblique case works in adjective also. And in my opinion, after that, you learned most of the oblique cases. I mean, there will be some exception here and there, but in my opinion, uh, you should be 90% set. For the most part, you'll be set with any kind of situations now, which is a good thing, right? I mean, I hope there shouldn't be any confusion on the oblique cases after this class. If there is, we'll definitely discuss that. So now let's discuss adjectives. Adjectives and oblique cases there. What is probably we can do is like how these things, when you have all of them combined together, like when you have oblique case of noun, oblique case of pronoun, and oblique case of adjectives combined together in a sentence, how those things work. Maybe I can give you some more exercises there in the later on, not right now. Right. So let's see. In English, straightforward, right? Good boy, good girl, uh, good boys, and good girls. Straightforward. All of them, all of them are good. There's no confusion, right? Hindi doesn't work like that. Hindi changes, right? Hindi changes. We have separate different good for all of them. If you are one boy, it's different good. Then you have many boys, and similarly for girls. Okay, so let's see how it works, right? I mean, so let's see first how it works for masculine singular, right? So this is, ladka, right? And this is acha. Straightforward, as simple as that. Acha ladka, acha ladka, acha ladka. Good, right? Now, if I were to ask you, how will it change if I have ke liye after that? All of you, I want you to try it or write it down on your notebook. Okay, so my question is, if I were to say, "Yeh phone," or I'm sorry, I don't want to give you in Hindi. This phone is for a good boy, right? So sentence would be, "Yeh phone." Let me try it again. This phone is for a good boy. you have to write the sentence in Hindi. First part is simple, ये है phone, this phone, and then good boy, you know, अच्छा लड़का, but after that there is a postposition. Very good, right? So you can see, even though independently this is good, this is correct, अच्छा लड़का is good boy, but whenever you're using, this was a trick question by the way, because after लड़का there is a के लिए, so it becomes यह फोन अच्छे लड़के के लिए है. Now I don't know if you noticed it, not only we did the oblique case of ladka, which is ladke, we did the oblique case of acha also, which becomes अच्छे लड़के के लिए. I hope you okay. We'll do it again and again, so it'll be clear. Now let's see how it works in masculine plural. Good boys, right? So when I just say good boys, it will be right. It should be simpler now for you. What is good boys in Hindi? No. There's no oblique case, right? This is just simple case, right? Very good, right? So good boys. Only interesting thing here is boys. It's straightforward, ladke. There's no problem here. But because it's boys, it becomes अच्छे लड़के. Try to follow me here. It's अच्छे लड़के. I can't say अच्छा लड़के. It's grammatically incorrect. Okay, अच्छा is for singular, masculine singular. But it's masculine plural. You have अच्छे लड़के. Okay. Now, if I were to say these phones are for good boys. The sentence is these phones are for good boys. So simple, I'll just combine it. ये phone, your this part, अच्छे लड़के, which is your अच्छे लड़के के लिए. Now you tell me how it will change. What will be the final sentence? This thing will come here, अच्छे लड़के, and after that के लिए है. Very good, right? So you figured it out. The final sentence would be, your final sentence would be ये फोन अच्छे remains अच्छे, लड़के becomes लड़कों के लिए है. ये फोन अच्छे लड़कों के लिए है. If it's still confusing you, I try watching this video again. I'm very positive you will kind of follow it. Okay. Now let's look at how this works in the case of feminine singular and feminine plural. Okay. In case of girl, it's good girl, good girls. So it'll be अच्छी, girl is लड़की, अच्छी लड़की, and this one is good girls, अच्छी लड़कियां. Now you see, this thing, your adjective doesn't change, even though your noun is changing from singular to plural. This is for the case of feminine, but in the case of masculine, अच्छा लड़का and अच्छे लड़के. But in the case of, your girl or feminine, it doesn't change. So far, so good, right? But same thing if you were to say for a good girl, the same thing if this is done used with a postposition, it will be for a good girl, or you say for good girls. First write the sentence for the first one, and then we'll jump to the next one. For a good girl. And if this is difficult to follow, you can say this phone is for a good girl. Right? So simple, right? यह फोन अच्छी लड़की के लिए है. अच्छी लड़की के लिए. You remember, even though there is a postposition के लिए after लड़की, even when we learned noun, लड़की means लड़की, right? यह फोन अच्छी लड़की के लिए है. यह फोन अच्छी लड़की के लिए है. This was the easiest one, right? I mean, they doesn't change. Now, what about this one? यह phone or this phone is for good girls. Try it, try it. You already have लड़कियां, अच्छी लड़कियां. Very good, right? So, अच्छी, यह phone अच्छी लड़कियों के लिए, यह phone अच्छी लड़कियों के लिए है. Right? As you can see that अच्छी remains अच्छी, लड़कियां, always the oblique case was लड़कियों, अलमारियों, right? अलमारियों में, right? So this अच्छी लड़कियों के लिए है, right? I wanted to practice it more, you know. To summarize it, I can quickly write it again, so that way at least it's repetition of, you know, good boy. So I'm going to quickly write it down because adjective was kind of a tricky thing, right? Good boy is अच्छा लड़का, right? Good boy, अच्छे लड़के. We write अच्छे लड़के. This should be clear because that's a plural. We write अच्छे लड़के because in Hindi adjective also changes based on the number or the number of the noun. So लड़के is in plural. That's why अच्छे is also in plural, right? Now when you write अच्छा, when you write it with postposition के लिए, it changes to अच्छे लड़के के लिए, अच्छे लड़के के लिए. So you created the oblique case of this as well as this adjective as well as for your noun. You have अच्छे लड़कों के लिए. Okay, so this is how it works for the masculine singular and masculine plural. Okay, so I hope this one is clear. I'll do the quickly repetition of same thing for, for girl. Good girl and good girls. So you have अच्छी लड़की, अच्छी लड़कियां, right? But when you're using it with a postposition called के लिए, let's see how it changes. So it's here, plus के लिए. This will result in अच्छी लड़की के लिए, and second one would be अच्छी लड़कियों के लिए. Okay, so this was a complicated one, especially when you use it with adjective. I hope you were still able to follow it. If there are still questions, please write it down on the YouTube comments or on our chat box, and I'll be glad to cover it in more details or examples. But definitely, I really encourage you to watch this video again. Right, this will kind of like strengthen your concepts on oblique cases for good. So with that in mind, I'm going to stop broadcasting. Folks who are watching, live on YouTube will meet again next Sunday. Feel free to share more ideas as what you would like me to cover. With that in mind, I'll stop broadcasting.